Good afternoon. This is John Daly, and I'm here to deliver a seminar today on entrepreneurship. And I'm very excited about this seminar because this is what I am as an entrepreneur, and I've had a wonderful time being an entrepreneur for many, many years. So I am excited about telling you about how to become an entrepreneur and knowing the things that go behind becoming an entrepreneur. It is not an easy task whatsoever. This course is designed to give students a background on entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are born, they're not made. Not just anyone can be an entrepreneur. Some people don't care to be. What is entrepreneurship? Who is an entrepreneur? Examples of famous entrepreneurs and a personal story. That's going to be my story I'm going to tell you. Reasons people become entrepreneurs, key takeaways. Entrepreneurship isn't easy. Some things to consider. Many things to consider, actually. Opening path towards entrepreneurship. Network like crazy. Lead by example and taking action. Once again, entrepreneurs are born, they're not made. If you're not born with a drive that you want to work hard, unfortunately, you're not one to be cut out to be an entrepreneur. What is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is the act of creating a business or businesses while building and scaling it to generate a profit. So it's the act of creating a business or businesses while building and scaling it to generate a profit, meaning that when you start an entrepreneurship, not necessarily are you going to find money right off the bat, but eventually you will, if you do all the things that are expected of you to do, okay? Modern entrepreneurship definition is also about social change or creating an innovative product that challenges the status quo of how we live our lives on a daily basis. So, more than a definition. The normal definition doesn't tell you that entrepreneurship is what people do to take their career and dreams into their hands and lead it in the direction they want. So what I mean by that is when people, if you have a desire to do something, then what you want to do, if there's something that you love to do, you can turn it into a business, but you have to love what you're doing because being an entrepreneur is very difficult. It's difficult in the fact that you have to run the whole thing right from beginning to end. An entrepreneur is someone who starts an idea that can eventually create a full-time sustainable business with employees. Same with a freelancer. If your entrepreneurial mindset is focused on creating a profitable business, you fit the entrepreneurial definition. Let me explain what a freelancer is. A freelancer is a person that will work for many different organizations or different companies, and they do this all on their own time. I mean, of course, it's their time, but they pick their schedules and they tell the person whether or not they can work the certain hours that people have asked them to work. So it's very important if you're a freelancer to keep stock of the people that you are working for and keep in contact with those people. You're going to hear me talk a lot about networking and how important it is. If you're an entrepreneur or a freelancer, it's very important to network. You have to have people on a regular basis that you are talking with in order to keep busy. In order to build your dream, you need other people. But the entrepreneur meaning involves much more than being a business or a job creator. Entrepreneurs take the idea and execute it. Entrepreneurship is about execution of ideas. So if you have a great idea, that's all well and good. But if you're not going to put the work into it to turn it into a great idea that makes money, that's where you fall flat. You have to remember that when you're starting this, you're all in 1,000%, not 100%, 1,000%. More. Who is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a person who sets up a business with an aim to make a profit. This entrepreneur and definition can be a bit vague, but for good reason. An entrepreneur can be a person who sets up their first online store on the side or a freelancer just starting out. A freelancer is a person who works for themselves, as I said before, and they're going to be working for a lot of different companies. So you can learn a lot from the different companies, and you can start your own business while you're still making a living working for those other companies, as long as you're not in direct competition with those companies. While freelancers do take on contract work for companies and organizations, they are ultimately self-employed. What does that mean? That means that when you are paid, you are not having your taxes taken out of your check. You are paid a set amount, and at the end of the time, at the end of work, you get a paycheck for the amount of money that you were said that you were going to be paid. And that is meaning that you have to take your taxes out, and you have to be prepared to pay your own taxes on a regular basis. Very, very important that you do that. Entrepreneurs are doers, they're innovators, and they're transformers. So when you get an idea, of course, it has to be a good idea. And who knows if it's a good idea until you try it. Then hopefully you're going to find out that it is exactly what you're after. What you do to be an innovator is to come up with the idea and figure out how you can go about doing it in a way that's a little bit different than everybody else does it. Therefore, transforming what it is that you're doing into something that is much more for your liking. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You make your own hours, you set your own speed, but I'm telling you from experience that when you're an entrepreneur, your hours are going to be very, very long because you are doing basically everything. Entrepreneurs see possibilities and solutions where the average person only sees annoyances and problems. I'm going to tell you my story in a little bit about being an entrepreneur. But I'll tell you this right now, that I worked in my industry, which was the special event industry. I worked in it for 44 years. And as far as I am concerned, I only went to work a year and a half out of 44 years. I think that's pretty good. Examples of famous entrepreneurs. Has anyone heard of Ina Garten, the chef? Elon Musk, we've all heard of. PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX. Bill Gates, everybody knows that name. He started Microsoft. He started Microsoft. Can you imagine having that intuition in his head of being able to start a computer company and be able to do well with it? Jay-Z and Beyonce, I mean, those two people are amazing talents. But what they did, not only in addition to being great talents in the music industry, is they have built all kinds of businesses surrounding it. They have a champagne company, for instance. They have lots of products that they sell. They have become gazillionaires on the entrepreneurship that they did, other than their natural singing and so on and so forth, and rapping. Oprah Winfrey. Oprah started out as a news person on a TV station in a little tiny town. She did the news, and she took that little bit, and what I've said before is she turned it around and innovated something else that was just a little bit different, and she's turned into one of the wealthiest women in the world. I'm not saying that everybody that's an entrepreneur becomes the most wealthy in the world, but they can make a good living. And the best part about it is not that they're making a good living, it's that they're living a good life because they're enjoying what they are doing. Mark Zuckerberg, excuse me, he's another example of with Facebook. We all know the story about Facebook and how it started. And here he was a college kid that turned something into a really great profession. Facebook turned into something far more than he ever expected it was going to be. Sarah Blakely with Spanx. Now there's an idea everybody has heard of ladies wearing nylons, and nylons that would firm you up, so to speak. Well, Spanx came along and they took that idea and they made it go even further. So they have Spanx that go over the whole body for both men and women to create the look of a different type of body. I'm thinking about it, as a matter of fact. That was a joke, okay? Paul Orfalea started Kinko's. Kinko's was started when he was in college, and he found a need for people, a need to make copies. And because they were doing so much work, this is way before we had the internet, or the internet was there, but before it was being used on a regular basis. And Paul went about putting this together. His first store was in Santa Barbara, and he did an amazing job of always delivering on time or before on time, and delivering the very best and staying open 24 hours a day. He found that when he stayed open 24 hours a day, his sales went up dramatically. Now, the question is, do you know any entrepreneurs? Do you know of anybody that really works hard on their own, doing their own thing, and somebody that has been successful with it? If so, that's a great thing. It's a great thing, and you can learn from them. John Daly, the entrepreneur, here I am. It's about building life on your own terms. No bosses, no restrictive schedules, and no one holding you back. Entrepreneurs are able to take the first step into making the world a better place for everyone in it, including themselves. That's the big deal, including themselves. Now, my story started when I was 18 years old, actually 17. I had graduated from high school, and I went to work at a flower shop. And at that flower shop, I was a delivery boy and cleanup person. And I had a great time doing that. I enjoyed the work delivering. I was driving. I hadn't been driving that many years. And so I loved driving anywhere I could drive. So I would deliver these flowers around town. And then when I wasn't actually on the road, I was cleaning up the shop and keeping track of everything, that everybody had the flowers they needed, and so on and so forth. I did that for a number of years, maybe 2 years, not quite 2 years. And I put far more into that business than I needed to. They were planning a convention in Southern California that was for a group called Teleflora, Teleflora is a wiring service for flowers, where you can wire flowers anywhere across the world by calling a flower shop in your town, and you just call and they order the flowers for you. They were planning a big convention, and it was going to be at a brand new hotel that was just opening. It was the Century Plaza Hotel. And this is how long ago it was. It was just getting ready to open, and they were going to have the first event there, the first big event. And so they started the Los Angeles chapter of Teleflora was in charge of the whole party. And so I went to all of the meetings that were handled every night, or not every night, but they were handled in the nighttime. And every time they had a meeting, I went to it. I did not have to do that. I was not paid to do that, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn, how do you put together a party this big? How do we do this in a hotel that's brand new? I remember going on a hard hat tour through the Century Plaza Hotel and remembering what it was like to go through that hotel in a hard hat and looking at what the ballroom was before anybody was able to get in to see it. And we had to plan a party. Well, it ended up that we worked on this for over a year, and I was involved in all of the meetings, enjoying every bit of it, and I knew everything that had to be done. And here I was, a delivery boy. But in the meantime, I had an eye for design, and I always did have that eye for design. I was born with it, and I developed it. I was born with it, but I developed it. So you can be born with something and not develop it. But I did develop my eye for design, and I started designing flowers in the flower shop along with delivering them and so on and so forth. I had then a mentor that he came to me and he helped me a great deal on learning how to design flowers. He was such a good mentor. He came in an hour and a half before the store opened and would stay sometimes 2 hours after the store closed. And we would design flowers out of old dead flowers that were not good. Or he would give me bolts of ribbon to take home to practice how to make a bow. But he taught me how to make the bow, but then I had to practice. That's what I mean about you have to develop all these things, how important it is to develop all these things. Anyway, he was part of this group that was going to be putting together this big party. Well, it turned out that the big party was right around the corner, and we went to the convention, and we were doing what was called the Governor's Ball. And that was at the Century Plaza Hotel in a room that held 100 tables. And we had 100 or 1,000 people coming to this dinner. And the people that were in charge of the LA chapter, all the people, they had a luncheon that day. And I will suffice to say that at the luncheon, this was during the time that people had 3 martinis for lunch. Well, it turned out that the people that went to the lunch were not really in a condition after lunch to start the installation of this event. And they looked to me for my knowledge of what I had done with all the planning. And so here I had designers from all over the United States, these big name designers, there to do what I told them to do because I was in charge of it, being from the LA chapter and the only person that was available. I put together this event, and these 2 gentlemen walked up to me when I was about halfway through. And you can imagine, I am a 19-year-old guy, and I'm in the middle of a ballroom, and I've never put together a big party. I've never even seen a party this big. But I knew from everything that was planned what had to be done. So these 2 gentlemen walked up to me and they said, can we go and get you a drink? Would you like a drink? And I said, no, thank you. But what you could do is you could put down your drink and you could move those things that are sitting there over here because that's where they belong. Well, these 2 gentlemen put down their drinks, and they did what I told them to do, and they continued to do what I asked them to do. And it turned out that they were 2 very famous designers from Arizona. And they owned a series of flower shops, which I will get into in a few minutes. Anyway, the party came together, everything was all set, and I went to the event that night. And as I was at the event, these 2 gentlemen came up to me and they said, we have a proposition for you. Would you be interested in moving to Arizona? We are going to open up a flower shop in Tempe, Arizona, where Arizona State University is. And we think you would be perfect to manage the flower shop. And I said, I don't know that I can do that. Really, I'm only a delivery boy. And I know how to design flowers a little bit, and they said, it doesn't matter. You could manage a flower shop with the way you put this party together today. You could manage a flower shop. So I took them up on the offer 6 months later, and I moved to Arizona, and I managed their new flower shop in Arizona. Soon I worked not only with the university, but I worked on parties and so on and so forth. And then I got engaged. And this girl that I had become engaged to, she and I, neither one of us had any money. And we didn't even have enough money to have a wedding. And so I made a deal that I would go back to Los Angeles from Phoenix, and I would buy a house, and I would redo the house and sell it. There's my entrepreneurship coming in again. I was going to flip a house. Now, I've been flipping houses with my mother and my brother for all my life. We've flipped houses, and we made a substantial living off of it. So I figured I could make some good money. So I moved to Los Angeles, and I bought a house. I was 21 years old then. And I was planning to get married as soon as I sold the house. Well, I worked very, very hard on the house. And I would work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for different flower shops in the Los Angeles area that were called party shops. And what they did mostly were big parties, but they did just the flowers and decor for big parties. And they also did regular everyday flower shop things, but they didn't have like a retail flower shop where people would come in. People could come in, but it was really more of a workroom. And so they had enough space for people to come in and pick out things and order, but they weren't really there for that everyday work as much as they were there for parties and so on. So I worked for these shops on the weekends, and I made good money on the weekends. I'd make enough money that it would secure me for the rest of the week. And I would work on the house the rest of the week. I did all my own work, or the majority of the work was done by myself. And I would hire in people when I couldn't do things like electricians and so on and so forth. And I got the house all done, and I ended up selling the house. And I did not end up getting married, however. I got stood up and didn't get married, but that has nothing to do with, well, it does have something to do with my entrepreneurship, because it actually pushed me further. It pushed me into working more and buying another house and doing the same thing, and with the working on it. And then further on down the line, I started working for a person that just did parties. That's all she did was parties. And she did the high-end events in Los Angeles area for high society of Los Angeles. I'm talking about old money. I'm not talking about Hollywood money. I'm talking about old money. She worked with them. And I worked with her for a number of years. And then I decided what I was going to do was I was going to open up my own business. At this time, I was 26 years old, excuse me. And I opened my own business. And I purchased the business from the woman that I had been working for. She was ready to retire. So I opened up the business, and I took a little tiny room, 400 square feet, in the back of a parking lot of a big office building not a big office building, but a good size office building in Los Angeles. Well, everybody said, you're never going to make it. You can't be an event planner. You can't put together events without a shop for people to come to. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. Well, I did do it. And I ended up becoming the Beverly Hilton florist right away, then the Bonaventure florist. And then I worked in a lot of different hotels. And because I was in the hotels, I got to do all of their party work. And before you know it, within 2 years, I had taken over the entire building that I had originally moved in, including the warehouse space. And I had a fleet of trucks and a full list of employees. And we worked like crazy. And I was in heaven. I worked every day, 12 hours, 12 to 15 hours a day. But it wasn't work. That's the thing. It was fun. Well, this work I continued for a number of years. And finally, I decided to open up a shop. And I opened up 2 flower shops, one of them in the Beverly Hilton Hotel and one of them in the Bonaventure Hotel. And I had those, plus I had the other company, John Daly Incorporated, which was an event planning business. I did this, had a wonderful time doing it. And the business built on itself. And I was constantly networking, constantly meeting people, always going to the places that I needed to be. I was going around to the caterers around Los Angeles and saying, may I present to you the things that my company does? And we do design and decor, and we're happy to do that for your company. And we will do it under your company name if you would like, so you can have us as your in-house designers. That went over really well because they didn't want to have people taking away their business. They wanted people helping them with their business. So we did that for a number of years, and soon I built even further, and I got to the point that I was doing mostly, not mostly, but a lot of social business, meaning charity balls and weddings and things like that. And I had done that now for about 25 years. And I decided that I didn't want to do any weddings anymore, that I wanted to get into the big time. And so I decided to go strictly corporate. And so basically I was starting a business all over again. The flower shops were still going, everything else was going, and I'm sitting in John Daly Incorporated in the offices there. And I'm saying, I'm not going to do weddings anymore. And I would have somebody call me and say, we're having a wedding for our daughter and I'd like you to do it. And I'd say, I'm sorry, we don't do weddings anymore. We just are in the corporate arena. And they'd say, thank you very much. I'd hang up the phone and I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. It was scary. It was very scary to be working that way. But soon the business picked up and I got involved in going to conventions that were for people that are in the event planning business. And I went to all those conventions and I networked. I let people know all over the world what I was doing and so on and so forth. Next thing you know, I was involved in doing the Olympics. I worked on the Olympics. I worked on World Cup soccer in 4 different countries. I worked for the Pope, and when he came to Los Angeles for his visit, I did both his altars, and I did all the flowers for all of the hierarchy of the church when they came. I was very, very successful. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. What I am saying is I worked myself to the bone and I loved it. So I wasn't working, I was having a good time. I did this for a total of 44 years and had the most wonderful life of being able to fly places in private planes and being able to be put up in the 5-star hotels and live the great life. And I was doing it all on other people's money. And that was the great thing. I was creating my fantasies with somebody else's money. It was a terrific way to go. 44 years later, I retired and I started teaching these classes. And here I am again, being an entrepreneur, starting another business that I saw a need for, and that is teaching etiquette and protocol and life skills and job readiness skills. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Reasons people become entrepreneurs is they don't want a boss. I know for myself, I don't take orders well. I know that I need to be the boss because I just don't take orders well. I know that about my personality. I know that's the way I am. They want flexible hours. I wanted to be able to work when I wanted to work and not work when I didn't want to work. So in other words, if I decided I wanted to take a vacation, I was able to make my own of course, my jobs came first, but I was able to go ahead and do well by working, having a great time, but still being able to have flexible hours. They want to work from anywhere. Once the internet came up and people were working on the internet and so on and so forth, I could work from anywhere that I was. I could work, if I was on a job in France, I could be working on a job also that was happening in the United States. Another reason that people become an entrepreneur is they can't get a job. You can't get a job working for somebody else. So what do? You start your own thing. And at least you're doing something. And you're doing something to build up a future for yourself. They don't fit into the corporate environment. I don't fit in the corporate environment. No way, no how. But I know how to work with the corporations. But I personally could not handle the bureaucracy of the corporate world. They're curious. I was very curious to see if I could make it. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. They're ambitious. If you're not an ambitious person, don't do it. Don't even go for it, because you've got to be ambitious. You've got to move forward all the time. You can't be a procrastinator. You have to be I drive people crazy with the fact that when I want to do something, it's got to happen right now. I don't wait. I don't hold back and wait. And there's ways now, not only now, but way before, but they're just coming out to really, we're really seeing things to change the world. People are changing the world because they're entrepreneurs and they're doing things that they want to do. It's wonderful. Key takeaways. A person who undertakes the risk of starting a new business venture is called an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur creates a company to realize their idea, known as entrepreneurship, which aggregates capital and labor in order to produce goods or services for profit. I was producing not only goods, I was producing services, because I was working as a planner, and being able to plan people's events is a service. That's the important thing, to know the difference. Not only was I providing design and decor, I was planning the whole thing. I was bringing in the music, I was bringing in the lighting, I was bringing in the fabrics, everything that it took to put together an event is what we did. Entrepreneurship is highly risky, but can also be highly rewarding, as it serves to generate economic wealth, growth, and innovation. It can be really risky, and you need to be careful. You need to be smart. You need to know how to delegate. That's the most important thing that you can learn being an entrepreneur, is delegate, delegate, delegate. Pass things off to other people that you don't need to clutter your plate with. If you don't know something, hire people that are smarter than you in the areas that you're not really adept. I'm not real adept with accounting matters and so on. So I hired great accountants, and I knew that they were on my side, and they did well by being a part of my company, but they did me well too, because that was not a place for strength for myself. So That's why it's risky. You have to be willing to be able to let go of things and let other people do the things that you don't know. Ensuring funding is key for entrepreneurs. Financing resources include SBA loans and crowdfunding. That's something that we didn't have. We didn't have crowdfunding when I was an entrepreneur, but it's something now that is around and really helps. People do a lot of crowdfunding to be able to start off a venture. It's great. I know what I did in my business. I started out with I borrowed. Now, this was a long time ago, everybody. So remember that. This is like 50 years ago. I borrowed $500 and I did something that people thought I was absolutely crazy. But I put $250, paid my first and last month's rent on my warehouse space, 400 square feet, big deal. And I took the additional $250 and I went out and I bought 2 outfits of clothing, 2 outfits that I only wore to appointments. So I wanted to look successful. That was the most important thing. I was driving an old beat up delivery van when I first started. And I would take my delivery van and park it a block away from wherever my appointment was and walk up to the front door of the people's house that I was going to or business that I was going to in my very expensive, which at that time, $125. It doesn't sound like anything today. But back then it was a nice outfit. I'd show up and I'd look good. I looked expensive. I was expensive. And one of the ways, another thing that I did with my business that was really important when my business was getting to be really big and I was doing a lot of little things and I was doing more busy work. It takes as much work to prepare an event that's $10,000 as it does for a job that's $100,000. It takes practically as much work. And so what I did was I decided to raise my prices. When I raised my prices, it knocked out all of the little jobs that were taking up all my time and put me in a different category and brought up my business and made my business much more desirable because I made myself a little bit of a more of a boutique type business. The way entrepreneurs file and pay taxes will depend on how the business is set up in terms of structure. Pay the taxes. So many people forget or just choose not to. And unfortunately, you may be able to get away with it for a couple of years, but you're not going to get away with it for long. Pay your taxes with your entrepreneur business. Entrepreneurship is not easy. Entrepreneurs commonly face many obstacles when building their companies. The most challenging ones that I can think of are as follows. Overcoming bureaucracy. You have to get your permits, you have to do all of the things that are important, and you have to be able to have the patience to do that. Hiring talent. It's not easy to hire other people that are going to follow your lead that are really good. It's not easy. But then there are those people that, like I said, are not entrepreneurs. They want to work in a field that they love, but they don't want to own their own business. They don't want to be responsible for that. So those are the people that you hire. It's terrific. Obtaining financing. I am a firm believer, really a firm believer, in always opening up your bank accounts with a small bank, not a big bank like Bank of America or Union Bank or something, a small in-town bank, because then you can build a relationship with them. You can build a relationship with the bank so they know you and know what you're all about. And they will help you when you are having troubles. If you go through a season, like for instance, I used to decorate probably 150 Christmas trees every Christmas. And I would have to buy all the decor and all the everything and so on and so forth. And I'd have to buy all that in October, November, and money was really, really tight. I could go to my bank and I could get them to loan me the money to be able to buy all those things that I needed to buy in order to, and then pay the money back in January when I received all my checks. It's much more work than a regular job. But once again, it's not work because you love what you're doing. You're making a difference. You're making a difference in your life. Motivation. If you don't have the motivation to do it, to do what I've been talking about today, forget about it. It's not going to work. You have to be motivated to really, really, really work hard. Picking up traction. That's what I was talking about with the marketing yourself and networking. You have to be constantly doing that. An entrepreneur is an individual who creates a new business, bearing most of the risk and enjoying most of the rewards. That's right. You enjoy most of the rewards. And you deserve them, because believe me, being an entrepreneur, once again, remember that the first 2 years, don't plan on the fact that you're going to make money, because 9 times out of 10, it takes 2 to 4 years before you really start making your own money, or making enough money that you are creating a living on. Before that, it's not easy. And that's why you need the financing. Some things to consider. Not everyone is a candidate to be in entrepreneurship, because some people want set hours, and with an entrepreneurship, it does not give you set hours. You may have to go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning and work until 10 o'clock at night, being an entrepreneur. Whereas if you have a regular job, you work your 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, whatever your hours happen to be. To be an entrepreneur, you must be able to think about different things all at once. You've got all these things on top of you that you have to think about. You're running the business, and hopefully one business turns into another. By the way, by the time I finished my career of being in the business world, I owned 6 different businesses. One of them, by the way, was always flipping houses. I continued flipping houses because it was a good moneymaker. And more importantly, I enjoyed it. That's why I did it. Be a builder and a doer. Entrepreneurs love the thrill of the chase. They're constantly looking for the next thing. That's what you have to be. That's what your mindset has to be. You have to be organized, even if it's organized in a sporadic order. When you look at my desk, you wouldn't think I was an organized person at all. Everything else in my office is very organized, with the exception of my desk. But it's very organized for me. Creative thinker. always be thinking about how can this be better? How can I make this a little bit better? Or maybe not better, but different, a little bit different. How can I attract another market? What is it that I can do? Creative thinker, always thinking of something. Take something they love doing and turn it into a business. I love decorating. I love planning events. It's in my blood. I love it. And so I made money from it. First cares about the idea, then cares about the money. If you have a great idea and you work really hard at getting that idea off the ground, the money is going to come to you. I promise you. Not everything will be successful, but we'll have to be okay with that. Sometimes it's not successful. You're going to get knocked off your ladder or your horse, I should say. Get up and get back on the horse. Start something new, whatever you need to do. To be an entrepreneur, you have to make the decision to go all in. I think I've made that really clear, that you have to be really ready to go all in. Much has been discussed on it, if going to college is necessary to become a successful entrepreneur. Many famous entrepreneurs are famous for having dropped out of college. Steve Jobs, the Apple founder. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college. Larry Ellison. They're just a few people that I know. That I have a high school education. I never went to college. Had I to do it over again, I think I would have taken night classes in business. Although I'm not a student. I'm just not a student. That wasn't my way. So remember that. Going to college, nice, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary for an entrepreneur. Though going to college isn't necessary to build a successful business, it can teach young individuals a lot about the world in many other ways. And I think personally that the college experience really is a great thing. Almost the experience of going to college and the people you meet and the connections that you make can last a lifetime. And I think that is worth every bit as much as the classes that you take. Most entrepreneurs can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. The business world is cutthroat. It's a cutthroat one, and getting any help, you will always help and reduce the time it takes to achieve a successful business. Networking is critical for any new entrepreneur. Meeting the right people that can introduce you to your contacts in your industry, such as the right suppliers, financiers, and even mentors. Look for a mentor. You always want a mentor, and be a mentor. Very important that you be a mentor, because you learn a lot from the person that you're mentoring. Attending conferences, emailing and calling people in the industry, speaking to your cousin's friend's brother who is in a similar business will help you get out into the world and discover people that can guide you. Once you have your foot in the door with the right people, conducting business becomes a lot easier. Most entrepreneurs need to surround themselves with people with different skill sets than theirs. I talked a great deal about that. Make sure that you've got a great accountant. Make sure that you have a great attorney. Make sure that you're doing everything in the proper ways. If you don't know something, find the expert that does. Let them do it for you. Lead by example. Every entrepreneur needs to be a leader within their company. Simply doing the day-to-day requirements will not lead to success. A leader needs to work hard, motivate, and inspire their employees to reach their best potential, which will lead to the success of the company. Very important. Entrepreneurship is hard because people have to be willing to work hard, much harder than holding a 9-to-5 job. Being an entrepreneur, you have to make sure everything that you are dreaming happens. So keep on working. Keep on working, but I called it playing. I was playing. You need a can-do attitude. Constantly working on things, even if not always a success. You're going to do things that you're going to fail. But let me tell you, failing is the best teacher. Failure, a lot of times, most times, brings back a lot of really good things to you because you learn a lot. Don't forget the most important thing. Anything is possible. I thank you very, very much. And please go ahead and tell us what you think of today's webinar by clicking the link below. And I look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Thank you very much.